In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what you missed from both League One semi-final first legs. Let's go. If you do find value from the content, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe on the journey to 10,000 subscribers. If you haven't, please do that. It helps me grow and expand my podcast in different ways. Let's begin with the game on Friday night at Oakwell as Barnsley hosted Bolton Wanderers. It finishes Barnsley 1, Bolton 3, the XG 0.68 to 2.49. Let's break this game down into three separate talking points. The first, Bolton's season-defining adaptability. The second, Barnsley's woeful defending. And thirdly, Bolton's secret weapon against predictability. All season, we've been critical of Bolton's inability to create and build up in a different way. It's great having control, but can you affect the opposition's box by approaching a move differently? On Friday night, Bolton had 41% possession, but still created a far healthier product and a very healthy expected goals. The away side completed 297 passes, only the second time this season Bolton have completed under 300 passes in a game of football. It was different, but it was tactically calculated to perfection by Ian Evatt. Bar one lapse in concentration, it gave Bolton complete defensive control whilst also provided an effective threat in transition. Take a look at the graph in front of you, brought to you by SofaScore. It's not a graph you'd normally associate with this Bolton Wanderers team, coached by this manager, but it does show quicker, slightly more infrequent moves upfield can be just as effective. Bar a 10-minute spell in the second half, Barnsley offered very little. The home side only managed 2 shots on target across the 90 minutes, with none in that opening 45. We always try and look deeper into those numbers. I mean, statistically, it's not great reading, but it doesn't get much better when you start looking at where those shots are being taken. These are the shot maps for the two teams. Only 33% of Barnsley's total shots came from inside the area, whereas Bolton had 88% inside the box. Ironically, the only shot that didn't come inside the box for Bolton was a corner, and that was directly scored, of course, from Randall Williams. Barnsley's defensive woes have been a problem all campaign, and bluntly, this back three just isn't good enough and needs some desperate summer change. Their backline have conceded the most number of goals inside the top 14 of League One this season. They've also conceded the third highest expected goals with a total of 44.3. That's more than Carlisle, Port Vale, Cheltenham, the list goes on. In this game alone, they really struggled to create, only forcing Baxter to make one save and conceding every big chance that Bolton had against them. With poor coaching, a really weak identity, this comes back to the fact they're attempting this playoff campaign with no manager. If you don't have control or have variety with the ball, defending effectively is the bare minimum. And let's be honest, they're not doing that. Bolton knew how Barnsley were going to try and hurt them. It was going to be an aggressive press and a direct ball in behind. The issue that Barnsley faced was this became very predictable and very counterproductive. The home side attempted 86 long balls across the 90 minutes, with not one directly turning into a chance. When defending the long ball, you have two choices depending on the opposition's threat in behind. With the pace and the general quality of John McAtee over the top, protecting the space in behind was tactically crucial. Take a look at Bolton's average positions because they suggest they were very aware of this threat and therefore operated with Ricardo Santos, their skipper, as a sweeper. The central defender looked after the space between the wide centre-backs and the penalty area throughout. He won 100% of his tackles, made 10 clearances, 5 recoveries and won every aerial duel he was a part of. Bolton's robust backline limited the Barnsley strikers to 1 shot on target and an open play XG of 0.56. Nothing is achieved yet, but it's a fantastic place to be if you're Bolton Wanderers. You head into that home leg now with a 2-goal cushion. Barnsley, I'm not sure where you go. You're going to have to attack this Bolton Wanderers team, which away from home is not ideal. And we saw in this game, Bolton can do that when it's 0-0 from the start, let alone now with a 2-goal aggregate deficit. Let's wait and see. It's going to be a really interesting second leg, but Bolton, well, they're well and truly in the driving seat. They're halfway to Wembley. In the second League One semi-final, it finished Oxford United 1, Peterborough United 0. The XG 0.53 to 0.73. Once again, let's break this game down into 3 talking points. The first, Peterborough's safer approach, the fine margins in attack, and thirdly, Oxford's diligent defensive display. Let's begin with Peterborough's safer approach. As expected, Peterborough learnt their lesson from the last time these two teams met because, well, they lost the game 5-0. And for the first 60 minutes, it was a much slower tempo. They took far less risks and actually conceded more of the ball. For context, in that 5-0 defeat a few weeks ago, Peterborough had 72% possession and in the first half completed 287 passes. Last night, the Posh had only 44% of the ball, 18% less than the season average. Now, was this intentional? Perhaps not tactically, in the way that Darren Ferguson spoke after the game. He wasn't happy with that first half. Defensively, I don't think he'd have too many complaints, but going forward, they weren't at it. Now, like I said, tactically, maybe that wasn't the intention, but psychologically, I think it could have been. In their heads, Oxford can't transition quickly if they don't have the ball. It's not the Posh way, but it's much safer. And when you've lost a game 5-0, other than if you are Peterborough, a 4-0, 5-0 deficit in the first leg is most likely going to be over, and Posh did not want to see that happen again. Take a look at the graph in front of you. Oxford had the control in the first half, starting and ending the half well, almost the total opposite to the game a few weeks ago. Peterborough's best spell came in the last 20 minutes. They got that foothold in the game that they were after, forced Oxford into a low block and gambled more overloads in the wide areas. After the break, Peterborough accumulated 14 touches inside the opposition box. That was 9 more than Oxford United. 0.7 of Peterborough's 0.73 expected goals came in the second half. This does show their improvement in the attacking phase, but also the lack of front-footed intention before Oxford scored. They only had 2 shots before the 53rd minute, and that was the minute in which Elliott Moore headed home the first goal of the tie, with a combined XG of 0.21 coming before that period. But Darren Ferguson made a switch, and Kwame Poku threw the safety book straight out the window. Take a look at these average positions. Look at the difference in positioning between Ajiboye and Poku. Poku began to stretch the play, stay high, and cause issues inside the box. Ajiboye, well, he couldn't operate higher, failing to accumulate a single shot, cross, chance creation, or even touch inside Oxford's area. I do sympathise with him slightly because I thought Kantongu was getting rinsed by Josh Murphy in that first 45 minutes, and Joe Bennett was also looking to create an overload using that overlap. So, although his attacking play was non-existent and his positioning was very, very deep, his fullback essentially forced him to double up. Poku completed every dribble that he attempted when he came on. He took 2 shots and had 5 touches inside the opposition box. That definitely quickened the pace of the game up, and Peterborough, well, they're at their best when they play with pace and purpose, because that front three is rapid, and they can rinse any fullback and defender apart in a split second. We spoke a few weeks ago about finding different ways to score goals. For example, 32% of Derby's goals this season came from set plays alone. In a playoff campaign, every fine margin will count. So, as a group, it's important to find variety when trying to affect the opposition's box. Oxford have had 31 corners since the last time they scored from that type of goal. It's been a missing string to our bow for a very long time, but saving it for last night, well, that could be massive. From a Posh perspective, set play defending still needs some serious work. It's been criticised by the supporters, and Darren Ferguson mentioned it in his post-match interview. They have to be better when it comes to conceding set plays. They've conceded the second most set pieces this season, more than 3 of the 4 relegated sides. Take a look at this screenshot that I've taken just seconds before Elliott Moore heads home. Moore at the moment is here, but he actually starts around here, and Cipriano, who is very loosely watching this ball come over and trying to mark Elliott Moore, was the player initially on Moore in this position here. Now, what's happened is a new corner technique that we hear Oxford have been working on all week. The ball's come over from Josh Murphy. On the other side, it's come all the way across the back post. Brannigan has essentially here got this ball over the top. Here, heading it across goal. What Cipriano has done, which is very, very schoolboy stuff, is forgotten or poorly tracked Moore as he's peeled off and looped to that back post. In the first phase, he is being marked, but he's completely lost him and switches off when it comes back across. It's very, very sloppy, and Again, he hasn't followed him. Moore's in dreamland right now. He's a comfortably over 6 foot defender, very, very physically blessed in the height department. And you've got Cipriano, who is, let's say, at least a metre away from him. I think that's Burrows there. It might not be. I think actually it might be Collins. He's a long way away from Moore. He's not getting there, and he is much shorter than Elliott Moore. Aerially, that isn't much of a contest. And then you've got this player here who is, actually concentrating on Kieran Brown, another one of Oxford's taller players. So Elliott Moore is completely unmarked. Ronnie Edwards on the line as well. He couldn't get to it. But it comes back to Cipriano for me. That's his fault. He hasn't followed his man. The move initially starts in this position here where the X is, and he's peeled round. He's found a really good area where he's not being marked. That ball's come across goal, and it's a comfortable header. It's a really, really good set play routine from Oxford, but from a Ferguson point of view, it's frustratingly basic and should be defended with a level of comfort. My final point on the attacking side of this game was Peterborough's bizarre decision to not use Johnson Clark-Harris at any point. I thought Ricky J. Jones offered something a little bit more dynamic off the bench, but the general output from the posh strikers last night was poor. Mothersill and J. Jones only managed one shot between them, had a combined 13 touches of the football, and racked up a combined XG of only 0.13. The away side also attempted 17 crosses and 51 long balls last night, with the pair losing every single duel they were a part of. Now, maybe Clark-Harris and Ferguson don't see eye to eye after that failed transfer to Bristol Rovers all the way back in the summer, but the contribution from the posh strikers seems to be a concern. And when you've got a two-time top goal scorer centre forward in this division on the bench, and you're not looking to bring him on at any point, when you've got players there that are not winning those duels, and Clark-Harris does win those duels, he's a physical striker. For me, it just seems very, very baffling. I'm not complaining, and he's probably going to start on Wednesday and score a hat-trick and knock us straight out the playoffs, but I'm just saying, it's a very, very weird place to be. I think Clark-Harris probably is also pretty weirded out by it too. Oxford's organised, diligent work defensively was crucial. The back four were involved in 16 defensive actions, with the team completing 17 tackles, 11 interceptions and 17 clearances. When you're tracking numbers like Oxford do, the defensive work is enhanced and becomes utterly pivotal in winning games of football. Between Mason Clark, Poku and Ricky J. Jones, they've completed a combined 208 chance-creating carries this season. Although Poku did improve things, like I said, off the bench, last night the trio only completed 2 successful dribbles and 2 chances created, one of their lowest outputs in a game this season. I want to highlight Elliott Moore, the skipper, not just because of his goal, but also the way he controlled the proceedings and every aspect of that back line. He won every duel on the ground, every duel in the air, and was never in the position to even need to make a tackle across the 90 minutes. He's led by example all season, and yesterday he was absolutely immense. It's advantage to Oxford United. It's a very, very slight one. There's still so much work to do on Wednesday night, where Peterborough side, I think, will try and finish where they left off, because they were growing into the game. They'll be hoping they're going to be growing into the two-legged affair. Let's wait and see. Oxford are going to have to stay very switched on, but they have got that one-goal advantage. Let's wait and see what happens on Wednesday. And of course, for Barnsley and Bolton, let's see what happens on Tuesday night. I've been Jack. This has been the Jack Wood Football Podcast. This is what we learned from the first leg of the semi-finals in League One. Take care.